Today we have credit strategies for small business owners with Mary Overby, who's the founder and chief innovator of Borealis Consulting. A little bit about SCORE before we turn it over to Mary. If you're not familiar with SCORE, SCORE is a nonprofit organization that can offer you resources and connections for the life of your business. So from business idea to business exit. SCORE was founded in 1964. We are a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And since that time, we've helped over 11 million people in pursuit of their business goals. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. Our vision is that every person has the support necessary to thrive as a small business owner. And one of our core values is that our client's success is our success. So a little information about how SCORE can help you. 3 different things we want you to know about. SCORE provides free business advice and one-on-one mentoring. We offer low or no cost business training, just like the workshop you're in today. And also, if you're not familiar, if you haven't been on SCORE's website, we have a lot of free business templates and resources, courses, things like that on the website, on-demand courses. So lots of great resources there. I'm going to dig into that just a little bit. So our mentoring services are free. You can go right onto the SCORE website and request a mentor. We can connect you with a local mentor, or maybe you have a specific type of business and you're needing a specific type of knowledge, and we can connect you with mentors across the country that can help with that specialized knowledge. We offer, every SCORE chapter offers expertise face-to-face in a local office. Right now, a lot of email or video conferencing mentoring happening. Wherever you're at in your business, whether you're just starting out, you're ready to sell or retire, you just need some help with growth, we can provide you with the guidance and resources to help with that. Local business workshops and events. So our Southwest Missouri SCORE, we have been doing this Tuesdays at 2 workshop series since last summer, and variety of topics for businesses and nonprofits. So if you're not already signed up to receive the emails, you should definitely do that. swmissouri.org to sign up for those, and you can keep up on our workshops. I want to let you know specifically about one that we have coming up. So we are doing our Simple Steps for Starting Your Business series beginning April 27th. It's a 5-week series. There is no cost for this series. It is sort of our cornerstone series. We have multiple local experts teaching these classes, covering the fundamentals of starting a business, including startup basics, refining your business concept, marketing fundamentals, financial projections and statements, how to secure funding. And that is a 5-week course. You can sign up at swmissouriscore.org. or shoot me a chat and I will send you the information and help you get signed up. And then of course the website, like I mentioned, on our website we have a resource library, live webinars, courses on demand, blogs and articles on a variety of business subjects, data reports, infographics. You can of course receive our newsletters to keep up on all of that stuff. And lastly, I just want to put in a plug for volunteering with SCORE. We have a lot of SCORE volunteers on the call today. And there are a lot of different roles you can fill as a SCORE volunteer. We have over 10,000 volunteers serving clients in over 1,500 communities. And whatever your skills are, we could use your help. So you can become a mentor, you can help with conference planning. We have our women's conference coming up in the fall. You can help with workshop planning. We've got a role for you. So please do reach out, send me a chat, send Mary an email, and we'd love to tell you a little bit more about mentoring. All right, so here's our contact info. score.org/volunteer if you want to volunteer, swmissouri.score.org to learn more about our workshops. And we'll go ahead and introduce our presenter. It's a bird and not Mary. Try that again.
Birds know a lot about credit.
I imagine that's probably true. I'll go ahead and just stop sharing my screen. And Mary. So Mary Overby works as an ecosystem builder, a small business consultant, a micro loan broker, and a nonprofit consultant. Borealis Consulting LLC is her consulting business. It was born to bridge gaps identified within the small business ecosystem and to assist business-focused organizations as they strive to do the same. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. And I do want to do an ethical disclaimer before we get going. I am the administrative assistant for our local SCORE chapter. I am not here acting as the administrative assistant. I'm actually representing my business. However, I'm not soliciting business. We're here to educate. I'm really happy that SCORE and the library have asked me to come and do this topic because it is one very near and dear to my heart. So, thank you guys for having me, and I'm going to share my screen and get started. You guys, this is the first time I've actually done this presentation, so feedback would be great. I'd love to continue doing this for SCORE, so please feel free to let me know if there's something that you think was too much or too little, and hopefully we'll get that from the Q&A section as well. Katie's going to help me with time because I tend to pack a lot of info into my webinars. But so for that reason, let's get started. So my name is Mary Overby. I'm located here in Springfield, Missouri, but I service the majority of the state of Missouri and some of the state of Kansas as well with my business, Borealis Consulting. With a portion of my business, I am nationwide. So I work with nonprofits and small businesses as a consultant in that realm. For those of you who don't know why I chose Borealis Consulting, the Aurora Borealis, Aurora first off is my oldest daughter's name, Aurora, and she was our beautiful light. So the Borealis, the Aurora Borealis is basically your northern lights. And I chose this because, dear Lord, I have the best imagery ever. It's fun and vibrant, and that's how I like my business to be. And hopefully that's how this presentation is going to come off today. I know credit is not the most fun topic, but my philosophy is business doesn't have to be boring. So we're going to go with that philosophy and see if we can actually make it work for credit. Just a little bit to let you know how I became an expert in this topic. So when I started my business, started working with a community development financial institution called Justine Peterson. They are based out of St. Louis, and they have hired my business to be a consultant for Southwest Missouri businesses, for Western Missouri, and especially for rural Missouri, working with small business owners to do microloans. So the first step in getting a microloan, as you know, is going to be credit. And I work with people typically who are not bankable. And so they do have credit issues in one way or another. So daily, I am looking at credit reports and working with clients on how to better their credit and really how to get them bank loan ready. That is our goal at Justine Peterson, is to get people bank loan ready. So with that, I want to ask a question. I want this to be as interactive as possible. I'd like to know what you guys think of when you think of credit scores and building your credit. Just throw it in the chat box. Give me some feedback. I want to hear what you guys are hearing, and I'm going to pull my chat up. So type away, throw it in there so I have it for later, so I can steal it and use it. Leverage. That is a very, very good thought for credit. It really is leverage, especially in today's world. Opportunity, for sure. If you want to grow your business and expand your business and be sustainable, you really do have to work on your credit. Any other things you guys want to throw out there? I noticed my SCORE mentors. What about with your clients and stuff? We don't even have to say you. What are you hearing with them? I hear bad credit, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so what I hear on a daily basis, these are my most common things that I hear when I'm working with clients. Number one is, I just don't get it. Like, I don't even know what it means. I can't oops, I did one too far. Or people are like, hey, I was fine on Credit Karma. I was at like 650, 680, and I went to the bank and they were like, no, you're not nearly close enough to get a loan here. Or I work with people who have no credit, or they've got collections or charge-offs, or they've hired somebody to help them take care because maybe they had too much debt to where they weren't able to make their monthly payments, and a collection agency came in and they said, hey, or not a collection, but a credit building agency came in and said, hey, we can help you with that. We're gonna get those all taken care of for you. And now my credit's tanked. And then I hear there's nothing I can do to make it better. So what we're gonna do today is actually go through each of these and discuss them individually. And I'm going to give you some strategies for each of them. We are going to be looking at real life credit reports today. These are from clients of mine that I have obtained permission to utilize. There's no personally identifying information. You'll have no idea who this is ever, because I will never tell you due to confidentiality and HIPAA. But we are going to look at some real world examples, because I'm a very kinesthetic learner. And so I can talk to you in abstracts, but I really feel like showing you what it looks like is going to be the best way for us to know how to help yourself or to help others. So let's start with, I just don't understand what it all means, okay? It's not abnormal to not know what a credit report, like how to read a credit report. It's overwhelming, and it's a lot of numbers and hopefully just black, but there could be red on there and you don't know which is which and what credit people are looking at. And there's just different terminology. So when you're looking at your credit report, these are your main things that creditors are looking at. They're looking at account distribution, current status, available credit, collections, debt balance or debt utilization ratio, age of accounts, and your hard inquiries, not your soft, but your hard. So let's look at what that looks like in real life. These are a Transunion reports. There are 3 different main credit reporting agencies. You have Transunion, Experian, and Equifax. The one that I utilize with Justine Peterson for every single client is Transunion. When you go to a bank, they may use the Equifax or the Experian, but typically they use the exact same report every single time, so that you're looking at, when you look at 2 clients, you're not looking at 2 different reports. You know what Transunion looks like all the time. All 3 of the credit reporting agencies do score just a little bit differently. So if you look at your Transunion, it may be 748, but on your Equifax, it may be 756 or 732. So that's why we use the same one. If you look here, these are 2 different examples, and I have put the credit score for both of these clients beside them so you can see sort of what a different kind of credit score would look like. So if you look at the top left corner, can you see my mouse if I move it? Yes, okay, so if you look up here, here's your account distribution, and this is what they're always broken down into. Real estate is an installment account, but they break it down separately because people who have real estate do tend to have higher credit scores. And so they break that out. And then there are many other different types of installment accounts. As you can see, this client has a really good number of installment accounts. You can look right here and see what his balance is for each of those, if they have any past due, and then what their monthly payment is. So if I'm a lender and I want to say first glance, looking at a credit report, how much are they already paying out of pocket every month for their current debt? So if they're paying $1,500, $2,000, and their monthly income is $2,100, I know they're not going to have enough money, have enough liquid income to pay another monthly payment. So what you want to see for you guys is that, number one, no red, but your payment history and your monthly payments are low enough that it allows you to make that payment. Another big thing we look at is here, right here, this available credit. You can see on this one, it says 92%, and on this one, it says 0. Okay, so what this means is because this person has no balance available because they have no revolving credit, then their debt utilization ratio or their available credit ratio is 0%. So that tells me as a lender that they have no revolving credit. So maybe they've got some hard inquiries. So maybe they've tried to apply for credit and they've been denied, or maybe all of their previous revolving credits, such as credit cards or charge accounts or anything like that, have been closed down or shut off. You want your credit availability to look more like this. Okay, so this person has $13,000 worth of credit on revolving. Maybe it's spread out over, it's spread out over 6 different accounts. But I know that if they had an emergency, that they have non-store credit. So it's not TJ Maxx, it's not Macy's. Now those will show up in here and they will help you. But we want to see things like a Chase MasterCard or a Capital One card that has available credit in case there's any kind of emergency. This magic number right here for what you want to see on available credit is 70. So it's below 70, you actually get dinged by Fico because you do not have enough available credit. They want to see that you're not using more than 30% of your revolving credit lines. All right, and so then we come in here to the negative Nancy part, and we definitely look at this. We want to look at if there are delinquencies. Have they been 30 days, 60 days, or 90 plus days? So every month, your credit reporting agencies or your credit debtors report to the credit agencies whether you have paid on time or not and how late you are. As it goes on there, each time you hit one of those marks, it dings your credit and brings it down. And we're going to talk about that more as we go through. But just for the starting base on what I look at first, before I look at anything else when I look at a credit report, this is it. Okay, so we've got our inquiries. Inquiries I really don't look at very much because they don't make a huge difference. But if I see a lot there, then I know that people are trying to get credit. Maybe they've been going to car dealership after car dealership after car dealership and they've got turned down, or they went to 4 different banks and they all ran a report and all of them said no, or they've been trying to get a house, whatever that is, or they've been trying to apply for gas station credit cards. All of that shows up there and impacts your credit score. Hard inquiries drop off after a certain period of time. And so they're not necessarily the end all to be all, but it does give a lender a little bit of an idea on how you're trying to build your credit, if you're having success, and what you've already done. So if you're looking at building your credit and the first thing you want to know is just like, I don't get it. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're monitoring it regularly. And I'm talking monthly. Like I said, they report out every single month. Every one of your credit reports out, installment and revolving, report out every single month to all the reporting agencies. Credit Karma is a phenomenal way just to become more knowledgeable about your credit. Experian actually has an app as well. They say they have their FICO score on there, but it will be different than your true FICO score. So please know that. But they have a lot of really great information to help you learn more about just learning more about credit. I like to tell people to make sure they're getting notifications. So if something comes in, they can go in and look at it. So if you've had another hard inquiry, or I'll get emails from Credit Karma that it's like, congratulations, you've been made on-time payments for so long. Look how it changed your credit score. And then I'll go in and check it out and celebrate. Or they'll be like, hey, you missed a payment. And you're like, oh, okay, well, we need to go fix that real quick. It helps you keep an idea and just become more knowledgeable. Additionally, and we're going to talk about the difference between Credit Karma and Experian versus your actual FICO score in a second. But you can get your free FICO credit report if you guys are not familiar with that. Annualcreditreport.com. You can go in and sign up. And every year you can get a free hard copy of your TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian credit reports. I recommend that you set yourself up on a 4-month rotating basis. So in April, every April, download your TransUnion credit report. And then in August, download your Experian or Equifax. And then same thing in December, that last month. Go ahead and just have a reminder set up in your calendar so that you can monitor that regularly. And then the last thing to do is get help, like talk to a score mentor, talk to a free credit counseling service. Here in Springfield, we've got consumer credit counseling, but find one near you that you can sit down and talk to. Additionally, a lot of lending institutions and mortgage lenders have people on staff that are trained to work with people to build their credit. So I know like at Justine Peterson, we have an entire credit building department that's free for business owners to come in and get assistance with, like, I don't get it, walk me through it, tell me what I can do to be better. Okay. Mortgage lenders are the same way. They have people that are on staff designed to help you with that. So for that first step, just don't be afraid to ask someone. Do make sure that you're working with somebody who's reputable and who's not going to be charging you an arm and a leg to go through your credit report, because there are free resources out there. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between Credit Karma and the banks. You guys give me a show of hands if like everybody knows the difference already. Let me see this. Does anybody know the difference between why, if you go on Credit Karma, you got a different one? Most people don't. And it's because they're, number one, for a couple of reasons actually. So number one, Credit Karma uses what's called Vantage Score. And that is different than the FICO score that your hard credit reports actually use. The FICO score is what your banks are going to use. All lenders will use the FICO score. It does not matter if you have a 780 on Credit Karma. It matters what your FICO score says. And as you can see from these two graphics from Experian, they actually rate the different numbers differently. So for Credit Karma, you're fair at 601. For FICO, you're fair at 580. And then, but look at the good difference. So Credit Karma really puts people into a good range, much lower than FICO does. So FICO starts, well, no, just a little bit lower, but they still have those different segments. The biggest difference though between these two is how they actually score things to devise that number. So that 3-digit number that is your credit score is comprised of different things completely. So when you look at your FICO score, the number one thing they're looking at is payment history, okay? And they give it a percentage, like that's the amount of weight that this has on your credit score. So if you have poor payment history, it's going to ding you hardcore. Whereas you look at Credit Karma on the Vantage Score, payment history is only moderately influential. So you may have a higher score, say you've missed some payments, you go on to Credit Karma, that Vantage Score may score you a little bit higher and say, you know what, you've got a really good credit mix. So you've got installment and revolving, and you don't have a lot of credit available. So maybe you have hit that 30% mark and you're below it, but you missed a couple of payments, not that big a deal. if you go over to FICO and pull your FICO score, you're going to be dinged really hard for having those missed payments. And this is especially true after last year. And they've actually changed this a little bit to make it more impactful, which is really rough for people because the pandemic. I mean, COVID has really impacted people's ability to make those regular payments, especially if they were laid off or lost their job or maybe had to start a new business. We've worked with a ton of new businesses starting the pandemic. So this is why, the main reason why you're going to see different scores. So as we go through this presentation, I want you to keep in mind this Vantage score, because as you look at Credit Karma, this is going to be what you're seeing, right? And like I said, I want you to monitor. I want you to use Credit Karma to monitor yourself, and it's really going to be helpful, but you also need to do FICO score. And so today, when we go through the rest of it, we're going to talk about the FICO score aspect. And that's where a lot of my strategies are going to lie. We're going to focus on that. So if you have looked at your Credit Karma and then you went to the bank and your FICO was really a lot lower, your strategies, and over here in the corner, you're going to see those same strategies that I mentioned at the beginning all throughout. I am a firm believer that if you don't know what's going on, you can't fix it. And if you're not aware and cognizant, you can't help yourself and build your credit. So you're going to see those, but what's going to be different is over here on the left. So the very first thing, because it is the most important, is you need to make sure you're making at least the minimum payment for every single debt you have, installment and revolving. I don't care if it's a Macy's card that's only, $35 a month, or if it's a Chase card that's $250. Like, figure out how to make those at least the minimum payment. Don't worry about paying down. This one is your top priority to bring up your FICO score. Your second priority is to work on getting your debt down. So if you have a little bit of extra income, or maybe you get a stimulus payment or your taxes come back, look at those, calculate which ones are not at that 30% ratio yet, and start working, make a little extra payments to get those paid down. And this third one is actually really, really important for FICO, and that's length of credit history. A lot of times we've got a TJ Maxx card that we got 6 years ago when we were in college and needed clothes to go on job interviews. I pretend it was 6 years ago. We're not really going to talk about it. Nobody gets to speak up on this part. But you don't need it anymore. You're like, you know what? I don't ever go to TJ Maxx. I just don't need this card, and it's just sitting on my credit report. Maybe if I close that out, then I'll be better off. The truth of the matter is that it will actually ding your credit if you close that out, because now maybe your length of credit history went from 6 years as your max, or 12 years, or whatever it is, 15, 20 years. Now it's gone down, okay? And so your length of credit history has decreased, which FICO likes to see that you've been utilizing credit for a long period of time. Another thing on this, and I have it here at the bottom, credit mix. Like, if you need to get a new line of credit, so maybe you only have installment accounts, or maybe you only have revolving accounts, they want to see a mix. So maybe you do need to add a new account so that you can have that the multiple account kinds that they like to see in there, but only do it if necessary, because what that does is that credit history, when you bring in a brand new card, it's also going to decrease your amount of time, your length of credit history, because it averages it out. So they really want to see those longer ones on there. Now, do remember that a credit reporting agent, like a credit card, will close you out. Okay, so if you've got one that you haven't used in 6 years, it's already going to be closed, most likely. If it hasn't been, go put $5 on there, $5, $10, and then pay it off every 6 months, just so it doesn't get closed out. So if you have one that's nearing that time frame, try to use it. If you don't even have the card anymore, contact the card or the revolving agency and say, you know, here's how long it's been since I've used this. Does it look like they're going to close me out anytime soon? If so, can I get a new card just so that I can use that? What do you guys need to see from me? They will communicate with you. They're much friendlier and more accommodating when you don't owe them money like past due. So being proactive and talking to them on the front end, they really do want to help you. Another thing is for your installment account. So I don't know about the rest of you, but when I paid off my car loan, holy cow, I was so happy. I was like, thank goodness, no more monthly payment. And it's coming off my credit. Yay. And then my credit score dropped. Now I paid it off in a bulk because I was like, I'm done. I only have like $800 left. That's like 4 months, right? Let's just do it. I could have kept that on there for another 4 months. So if I had been getting a loan, if I had been going to the bank and needing a loan, it would be better for me to have 4 months left on there and continue making those payments, utilizing that interest, than paying it off in lump sum and then going to the bank. I actually had a conversation with a friend last night and they were like, we thought that we were going to be so much better off paying off all of our debt. And then we got there and they were like, you have no credit. Okay. So keep that on there so you have your credit history. I have no credit. All right. This is what it looks like when it comes down to the actual TransUnion. They won't even give you a credit score. Okay. Now this person, as you can see, does have something there. But what it is derogatories. Okay. They don't have any credit here. And so therefore they won't even give them credit. Now, this client actually has only collections, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. And you're actually going to see this slide again here in a little bit. But there are other ways to not have any credit. Who's familiar with Dave Ramsey? Right? He's phenomenal. He is a phenomenal resource to get yourself on budget, to become debt-free, to create savings. He is phenomenal for everything but building credit because his philosophy is cut the cards, right? No credit is good. And that's right, unless you're trying to get a loan. And I cannot tell you how many clients I have had that are Dave Ramsey. They've got money in the bank. They've got money for a down payment, but they have zero. They have collateral, but they have zero. Yeah, because their collateral is paid off, right? They didn't buy a car unless they could pay for it outright, but they don't have any credit. And so therefore the bank is like, sorry, especially if it's a larger loan. Additionally, you've got people so the people at the top right here, if you ever go to pexels.com, which is stock photos, these two are my absolute new favorite stock photo duo because this guy is hilarious. And I could have put all of his pictures in because he was just great. But this is somebody who, this is my portrayal of some friends of mine who they weren't on the Dave Ramsey method, but they were buying a house and they paid off all their debt because they had 2 incomes, no kids anymore in the house. And they thought they were doing great. And then the bank was like, no. They are my prime example of that. And then you have down here in the bottom, you have young people who are just starting out, right? Their parents have been helping them pay for things. They've got student loans maybe on there, but really not much else. They may not have a credit card yet. They may not have bought a house or a car, so they don't have any collateral, but also they don't have anything on their credit report. So there's a plethora of reasons why people could have no credit history, and I see it. And so do banks. And I get referrals from banks when they're like, I just can't help them. Like, we need to get them credit. So here are some options here. Like when you're looking at your FICO, the most important thing is to start getting credit, okay? And then you don't want to do it all at the same time. You want to sort of layer it a little bit because you don't want all your credit history in one smush, right? Your length of credit history, you want it to be able to grow. And let me see, I didn't. So I do talk a little bit later about how to get some credit. And so with the sake of time, I'm going to flow past this, but we're going to come back to this thought process on how do I actually get credit if I don't have credit, because that's a big, big question that I get a lot. And that's something that there are options out there. And we'll talk about it here in a little bit. All right, so let's talk about collections or charge-offs. Right now, this is what I'm seeing 90% of the time because people couldn't pay their debts last year. And so by this point, creditors are like, no, you need to go. I do want to talk about the differences. And I forgot to change this here, so don't pay attention to it. I was going to talk about all that, and I was like, I don't have time. So there's way more to credit than what I could do. But this is what a collection would look like on your report. And this is what a charge-off would look like. Now, I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. Right here for this charge-off, you have a high credit that is different than your balance. So this means that when you started with this creditor at Tower Loan, then you had a little over $4,000 balance. Now then, when they charged it off, you have $3,500. Now you could have paid $2,000, $3,000 on that, but with late fees and all kinds of different fees that they're going to charge you as you're past due, then that adds up. And that's what they're going to charge off, is that full amount, not just what it may have been $2,700 when you were done paying, when you couldn't pay anymore. That's the difference. But the thing is, you do still have a past due. Okay, and this is going to be really important. Now, this tells me when the last time these people made that was and when the charge off happened. So I know that it happened in 2017. I know it was 4 years ago. So it's not as big of a deal. Now, this one right here, is 8/15, but the difference I want to show you is the past due is no longer here. And the high credit is the same as the balance. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but you can see they're still reporting on this, okay? With this one, with the charge off, it didn't get, the last it was reported was 5/17. So in 7 years from that, they've got another 3 years before that comes off of their report. So let's talk about charge offs first. Your two most common agencies that will do charge offs are loans. So like any of your installments, auto loans, bank loans, house loans, real estate, any of that kind of stuff will typically charge off first. Credit cards will also typically do a charge off first. And this is the step before going to collections. Okay, so charge off is the first step. Typically, this is going to happen after they've received no payments for 6 months. So within that 6-month time frame, you're going to still see that past due balance there that you can still pay off. Now, mind you, this one is still on a credit report because they have a past due. Even if it was 4 years ago, they could still pay that off. They've never sent that to a collection agency. It's still there. One thing to know about charge-offs is it is still showing up on your credit summary, okay? So you've got that balance there and a past due balance at that. And remember, this is what I said, this is the first component that lenders are looking at. And what they see first off is that big red flags, literally red, right? Literally red. And we may see it's 5/17, but it's still there. It's going to show as that past due balance. Now, the biggest thing to remember is that you are still liable for that debt legally. You are still liable. They can sue you, and a lot of them will. A lot of them will take you if it's less than $2,500 or $5,000, depending on the county and sort of what their level is. They could take you to civil court and ask for that debt to be paid off and have it put on a garnishment from an employer. They could do a wage garnishment, or you could set up a deal like, here's how much I'm going to pay per month. But one thing to note is that as long as it's still being listed as a past due, you can contact that creditor and make a payment and get that paid off. And that's the most important thing. Once you've paid, like started paying this off debt or paid it off, it will go from being called a charge off to paid charge off. And it's going to remove this past due balance on your credit report. Now, paid charge offs are still considered derogatory. They are still going to impact your credit score, but lenders typically look at that and say, okay, they got behind, the creditor did a charge off, but this person still made good on their obligation to pay that off. And so therefore they did. And so that's the important thing to think about with that. Now, collections, these are the ones that typically don't do a charge off. They go straight to the bank and straight to the collection agency. This is the most common thing I see. And it's like tiny ones. It's like $85 and $151, or cell phone bills for like $142. And when I talk to the clients about this, they're like, I'm not doing it. Not paying them off. I'm done. Like, they say things that I won't say on a webinar because Mr. Headley's on here and he will kick that for me. So collections though are different than charge-offs. Once it goes to a collection, there's nothing you can do about it. It's on your credit report, like it's done. And you cannot remove it unless it's inaccurate. It will come off after 7 years, but once you pay that off, it's not going to change your credit score per se, because it already went there. If you have a charge off that then gets sold to a collection agency, that past due balance will then go to a zero. So your charge off does not ever become a paid charge off. You have no opportunity to make it a paid charge off to show your lender that I made good on my obligation. What they're going to see is they're going to see that charge off, and then they're going to see a collection account also. So we're going to see that debt transferred directly to another, that collection agency. Even though you may have no past dues, you're still going to have that collection. You also lose that installment account as a source of potential credit. So if you've paid off a bad debt, you have a chance potentially of continuing to utilize that as another credit source in the future. But you don't now, once it's went to collections. Now, as you can see on this example over here, I told you I was going to show you earlier and that you were going to see this same example. This is it. They have only collections. So everything has went into collections. They have zero revolving or installment accounts, zero available credit. They may not have, I mean, look over here, they don't have, because they don't have any lines of credit. So nothing can be providing them with a 30, 60, 90 day. So now, because everything's in collections, they don't have any credit. So it's really important to address things ahead of time in order to not get to this stage. But people are at this stage, so how do we solve it, right? I mean, this is not a fake person. This is somebody that I really am helping. So how are we doing that? I do want to throw this in here real quick, just so that you can see what can happen when you have a charge off or a collection. So if you have a really good credit score, you can drop by over 100 points by getting a charge off or a collection. One, right? Typically what happens is with a charge off, right, you're looking at every month they're reporting that you're not paying. Well, that's your payment history right there. Additionally, you're getting late charges and late fees. There's your amount owed right there. And then all of a sudden they're closing out accounts. There's your credit, length of credit history. And then your credit mix. You're going to lose, once it goes to collections, you're losing your credit mix. You're losing the ability to get new credit. And maybe all of a sudden you're doing hard inquiries and trying to get another piece of credit, or maybe you're trying to get one of those personal loans to where you can consolidate and pay everything off. And so you've applied for like 3 or 4 and been denied. That's hitting you there too. So I want to point out that even if you have a really good credit, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So if you already have poor credit, it's not going to fall as far or as fast, but it's still a really drastic jump. And once you get down, it is so much harder for that arrow to go back up than it is to go down. So let's talk about what do you do if your credit report has gotten into this situation. Because a lot of people after last year, man, I'm seeing a lot of late payments and things that got sent to collections, and seems like everybody's really quick this past year to send to collections. They don't even hardly try to call you or resolve the debt. It's just like, let's go. Because they don't have the time or the staffing or the money to do it. And they're dealing with a lot more people who are defaulting than previously. So if you do still have any accounts in good standing, your top priority before paying off any debt, any collection, is to continue paying on your good credit reports, okay? So if you've got one credit card left and it's got a $35 balance, you pay off that 35 and then you put another 35 on there, and you keep making sure you're using that credit and paying it off, okay? If you've got a $6,000 balance and you're like, oh my gosh, the second thing is to look at bringing that down to that 30% debt utilization range. So instead of paying your collections, that's not what we're going to do right now. You're going to make your minimum payments, and then you're going to pay down your existing good debt to that 30% utilization rate. Okay. You want to have good credit to counterbalance the negative credit. And I promise you, there are lenders that look at that. Okay. So it also is going to help your credit score. Like I said, it's incremental. It's hard to get it back up there, but the longer you keep doing that, even if it's a little bit, it's going to help. And then also, if you do have any good accounts, don't close them out. Once again, keep that credit history. If you've got that charge-off account, get that paid off so you can have that credit history and that good credit. If you need to obtain new credit so that you can start making those good payments, do it 100%. Try to find a secured credit card. Work with an organization like Justine Peterson that provides credit building loans to give yourself an installment account. They do them as low as $500 just to give you that installment account. But make sure you have something that you're making positive payment on. And just remember, time heals all wounds, including a credit score. So a lot of times it's just about time. Once you get past that 3-4 year mark, it lessens its impact on your credit score if you're doing these other things. Okay. As long as you're doing those top two things, then over time, that starts to become more of a determinant in your credit score again than those collections and charge-offs. Public records are the same way. Bankruptcies are the same way. Okay. All of those can lessen their impact over time. And after 7 years from the date of first delinquency, they'll come off. Now, that's something important to remember, because we see a lot of people I've seen people who had a collection on their credit report for 6 years, and let's say it was $10,000. And they were like, hey, I can make a payment on this now. I finally got myself in a good place. And so they make a payment. All of a sudden, they didn't pay off the whole thing. They paid off $3,000. So now, instead of having 1 year left for this $10,000 collection to come off their credit report, now they have 7 years left for $7,000 to come off their credit report. So it will start it over. And I have had clients that I have advised to wait until that came off their credit report and then come back, because it's going to increase their credit score once those fall off. I have a lot of people who have worked with companies that said, and I mentioned this earlier, now I want to clarify something here because there are reputable companies out there that help you work on your credit. I have a best friend. That's what she does all day, every day. She does consumer credit counseling and works with people to understand their credit report, all the things I'm talking about today. She works at, and she says, how can we do this best for you? But then there are credit agencies out there, and that what they'll tell you first is, number one, quit making payments on your bad debt. Quit making any payment, or on your credit card debt. So maybe you have a really high balance here, right? So we've got a really high balance, and say this was the 89,000, and trust me, I've seen that. Then you go down, and all of a sudden, instead of having, look at these past dues, right, on those accounts, that's bringing this credit score right here is a 545. Okay, they're not going to be able to get a loan from a bank because largely of these past dues. And they may have started coming back and making payments, right? They've been on time for a long time. But this was the gap right here where they were working with that credit collections repair company, where they were like, don't make those payments. Just don't answer the phone calls. Just keep turning it off. Don't make those payments. And it tanked their credit score. And this is how long they've been working on it. And they're still at a 545. So it's really important, if you're in this situation, once again, remember how that works, to continue try to building that good credit. Okay, focus on paying down any good debt. And then this is a time where new credit is a good idea. Okay, because it doesn't have that past bad history. So obtaining a secured credit card. If you've got any charge-offs that you can do, pay those off so that you get the paid charge-off. And then make sure you're keeping anything that is a good line of credit, keep it positive and keep it current. And, you know, a lot of times what's happening is those companies are calling you, or they say, we'll settle everything, we'll handle it. But then they're not. And they're not actually legally allowed to. The credit card or the debt collector is not legally allowed to work with that agency on your personal credit. Okay, they have to speak with you directly. Once again, you know, any of those things that happen, if you get into that situation, it's gonna come off eventually, but just focus on those top ones. And then on this bottom one as well. This one, we're not gonna worry as much about the length of credit history, because typically those that have gotten messed up are the longer ones. And the first thing they're gonna do as soon as you quit making those payments for an extended period of time is they're gonna close them out anyway. And you're not gonna get those opened back up. So you need to focus on rebuilding credit at that point. Okay, so here's the good part, really. I know the rest is super woohoo, but let's talk about what you can do to make it better. Traditional banks do have options. So maybe you can't get exactly what you want. Maybe you need a loan for your business and it's $50,000 or $150,000, and they're like, no. They might be able to do an SBA guaranteed loan if you have over 600. I know for the community advantage loans that we do at Justine Peterson, the minimum SBA requirement is 600. So there is options out there. Additionally, a lot of the smaller banks will have commercial loans. Business friendly banks are really, really important to you as a business owner. Because they're the ones who are going to want to help you. And they, like I said, they may have those commercial loan products that are in-house that they don't have to send to a big underwriting guide that will tell you yes or no. And so they may have, and I have heard of credit scores down to 620 being accepted for those programs. You're probably not going to get a line of credit. So if you need a line of credit for your business, it's probably not going to happen. You got to have credit to get credit. That one's the bottom line, but that's a goal to lean towards. And then a lot of banks will have secured credit cards. So you say, here's $200, and they take it and then they make monthly payments, and you've got that $200 to play with and build revolving credit. Academy Bank is one that really doesn't have a lot of requirements in order to get their secured credit card. So if you are in a bad spot and you need a new line of credit, that's the kind of thing that can help you. So traditional banks, like I said, Academy Bank is probably the most common, but always talk to your bank first. And then you have CDFIs like Justine Peterson that I work with. They're literally designed to help non-bankable business owners and to deal with bad debt and bad credit. So I do a lot of loans for paying off collections. I mentioned if you pay off collections, it's not necessarily going to help your credit. But when I look at your credit, or when a lender looks at your credit, and if you're making all those other things on time and that's off of there, you're going to be a lot more likely, you're going to get there quicker. That makes sense. You may get that additional credit card that you want, or a higher account spending limit on your secured credit cards. Additionally, they can help you with getting an installment account so that you can have others, and secured credit cards. And then credit cards are an option. Most of the time, they're going to have a really high APR, so you want to use them very sparingly and pay them off if you can each month. Store credit cards are good, so like Macy's or Target or Best Buy or wherever you want to go, but don't get a huge balance and then not and lose, keep it under the 30% utilization rate and make those minimum payments every month. Okay. And then you also want to eventually try to get a non-store credit card. I was going to talk about business credit. Business credit is rare and few and far between. So, but you can obtain your DUNS number at Dun & Bradstreet for free. It doesn't cost anything. And then anytime you talk to a lender, you want to ask them if they report to Dun & Bradstreet and provide them with your DUNS number so that can help you build business credit. Banks are not required to report to Dun & Bradstreet, but some of them do so that they can help you. Business credit is important. It's honestly not as important as your personal credit, but as you get larger and your business gets bigger, it is going to help you. And then contact your Cdfi lender representative. And really important, I've got this link down there for nav.com. If you're not familiar with nav.com, you can sign up for credit alerts. It'll actually monitor your business and your personal credit. It also has an app that you can use where you can get those regular email updates or text alerts or notifications that you're doing a good job or something needs attention. And then the last thing on there is contact your Sbdc or score consultant. This is a free resource that's available to help guide you through this process. They're not going to be able to give you financial advice or legal advice, but they can help educate you and help answer questions. And sometimes it's just really nice to have an ear. Oh my God, Katie. I'm at 3 o'clock exactly. No questions for you guys.
It's amazing. I'm amazed and shocked. Good job.
I am willing to answer any questions if anybody has any that they would like to ask. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can move this. And if there are any questions, please feel free to. Let's see what's in chat. Oh, Katie was giving me time updates because she's amazing. Jared, you asked earlier, you said they use a different FICO score. Were you referring to the 3 different reporting agencies, the Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian? You can come off of mute. Yes, he says he doesn't want to talk to me. Okay.
I got a question.
Hold on a second, Justin. Let me answer Jared's real quick, and then we'll get to you.
Okay.
Okay. So, Jared, yes, and it's because. So I've seen it to where like there'll be something on a hit still on Experian, but it's not on Equifax or TransUnion. And so somebody's had to go in and dispute, like, this has already been paid off. It needs to come off of my thing. So everything hits them at different times, and they weigh things a little bit differently as well. Typically within the scope of the three, there's not going to be that big of a difference. If you want to see how different it is for that first year, you could order all three of your credit reports from annualcreditreport.com at the same time. I mean, you don't have to stagger them. You could do them all at the same time and look and see what's different on the three of them and how they've got things differently. So it's typically not a big difference, but it can be as big as 10 to 15 points. I had a client the other day, like a month ago, who was really angry because the bank was wanting to use her Experian or something, and not her Equifax, and it was 15 points lower, and it bumped her out. So it does depend. That's why it's important to monitor all three, either once a year or staggering them out like that, because you want to make sure that things are clear on all of them, or talk to your lender and say, which one do you utilize, so that you know which one to watch. So does that help? Does that answer why that is? There's no rhyme or reason. Does that make any? They do what they want, for sure. But they are financial institutions, and so that's what we have to do. So, okay, Justin, what's your question, sir?
Yes. So let's just say, for example, I've rebuilt my credit. I've done some of the steps that you're saying to do. What are some of those business-friendly banks that you were kind of talking about?
So here locally, the best way to find the most small business friendly banks is the SBA. Every year puts out their top SBA lenders. I think Oakstar Bank has won like 5 years in a row. But they'll put out their top 5, and it really gives you an idea of which banks are focusing on small business. Now once you talk to them, you may find out they won because they're giving these huge loans and not necessarily the small ones. I always recommend interviewing banks. Like and I recommend business owners, I'm like, go in there and interview them and be like, you guys fight for my business. I want you want me. I don't want you, you want me. I send people, when I give referrals, I send people to the banks who refer to me, because those are the banks who are really invested in keeping their clients and helping them, because they know the resources. And so Great Southern Bank has a lot of microloan options. So they have a really good commercial program. Arvest Bank is a top SBA lender and is really focused on small business. Bank of Missouri is phenomenal. Right now, their hands have been tied. I've been getting a lot of referrals from them just because their underwriting is not the same as it was before COVID. Ozark Bank is great. I mean, I work with a lot, and I don't have any banks, maybe if we talked offline, that I could be like, I've heard bad things, but I'm not going to say any of that here. But my biggest advice is to interview them. Ask them, what's your minimum credit score requirement for your what kind of products do you have for small business, and what's your credit score requirement for each of them? And here's the thing, it may change. So they may have been 680 before COVID, and maybe they're 720 now, or maybe they've actually got a product right now that they don't have, you only have to have a 650. And so you totally qualify. So really, regular contact with your lender is really important, but also making sure that you've asked them the right questions. And so I hope that answers, Justin. It's sort of a roundabout way of answering. I gave you some, but.
It does.
Okay.
Mary, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Let's say an individual gets the credit report and finds that there's an error. How long does it normally take for somebody to get that error off of that report?
So as far as disputing, it could take as little as a month or two. Like I said, every credit reporting, like every creditor reports out monthly. They have their own 30 days, whether it's like on the 7th or the 15th, but it's on a regular basis. And so if you've got something disputed, just depending on how long it takes to dispute it with that agency, that next 30 days, once they've agreed to that dispute, it should come off. So like I've got a client right now that I'm working with that we're paying off a couple of collections to get those off. And bump their credit score just a little bit, just enough. And then they had a child support on there, which is a no-go for SBA. However, they had paid it off. It was gone. Should have been gone years ago. So they're disputing that. They're working with the credit department to dispute it, and we're looking at a 30 to 60 day turnaround to get them back in the game. So, I mean, it really just depends on that. And there are sample letters out there. nav.com has it for a credit dispute. They have the addresses of where you need to send it, because you'll have to send it to all 3 of the agencies. So that's if you're disputing, don't just send it to one, send it to all 3.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I apologize, I went over, Katie.
It's okay, it's good information.
It's a lot. As I said, I've got a lot of you guys on here. I want to hear some feedback on and what I can take out and what I need to add in. Do we need to make this a 12-hour presentation? Totally game for that. No, I'm not, by the way. So, but thank you again for having me, and hopefully this helps. Anytime, especially with the Score Mentors, if you guys have questions, I am more than happy. And anybody who's on here today, put a meeting on my calendar link and set up a time with a client or whatever, and I will help answer questions if you're not able to. Most important thing is that people get educated so that they can make changes.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I threw a link in the chat there for the Simple Steps for Starting Your Business series coming up later this month if you're interested in registering. That is our next Tuesdays at 2. So hope to see everybody then.
All right, thanks guys. See you later.
Bye.